My guest today, the great Nathaniel Rateliff. What a career this guy has had. You know, a lot of folks in this business, they sort of know when they're in their 20s or 30s that they're going to make it. They're going to be big. And then at some point, they're not big. His trajectory is almost exactly the opposite. This guy hustled away for seemingly decades. And I mean that, decades, playing music in different bands, traveling around, just trying to make it. All the while holding odd jobs, worked at a trucking company, worked for a gardener. And I don't know, sounded like he was pretty damn content doing that. But then came along, son of a bitch, give me a drink. And his whole life changed. And I've been watching him for many, many years. I am a huge fan, and I've said it on my socials. This is a fanboy moment for me, to be able to sit down with him at his bar, the Skylark Lounge in Denver, Colorado, where he lives, and the bar obviously located there. He owns it. Was a real pleasure. Nathaniel's a soft-spoken, but I enjoyed the heck out of the conversation. And the guy just, and by the way, I know enough people in the music business. You always kind of ask, how is so-and-so? How is so-and-so? I don't know. Oh, difficult. Oh, impossible. Every single person that you ask about Nathaniel Rateliff says the same thing. He's a fucking amazing guy. Think about that, right? I mean, every single person. So I was super excited to meet him, and can't wait for his new work and for the world to, quote unquote, get back on tour. I can't wait to be there as one of his fans out in the audience. So enjoy this conversation with Nathaniel, and we'll see you guys soon. Today's show brought to you by 10,000. Now, this has become my go-to workout apparel. I work out all the time, especially in the middle of winter here in Colorado. But I came across 10,000 and I said, this is it for me. Like, this is all the other stuff I wear gone. 10,000 between the materials they use, the cut, the fit, all of it. It is by far the best. Direct to consumer company. There's no middleman, no funny business in the middle. You go straight to them. Over 10,000 5-star reviews, free shipping and returns, and a lifetime guarantee. Keith and his guys and gals over there are building a monster. I love this brand. Head on over to 10,000.cc for our listeners, 15% off of your very first purchase. That's 10,000.cc. And by the way, enter the code FORWARD. One more time, that's 10,000.cc, 15% off. Code is FORWARD. Let's talk about Helix. Y'all that listen all the time know that I am crazy about sleep. I love getting good sleep. If I don't get good sleep, I suck. I love tracking my sleep. I love hacking my sleep. Well, without the Helix mattress, I would not be sleeping the way I am. It's a straight fact. They sent me a new mattress. Before I did that, I went on and filled out a 2-minute quiz. They make it very straightforward for you. Fill out sort of your sleep habits, your sleep characteristics, and they customize the mattress for you. Thing shows up on your front doorstep, looks like a set of golf clubs. Next thing you know, you have what I think is arguably the best mattress I've ever slept on. Don't believe me? GQ magazine and Wired magazine named it the top sleep mattress in recent years. Head on over to helixsleep.com/theforward. Take their 2-minute sleep quiz, get matched up to your customized mattress. That's helixsleep.com/theforward. One other thing, Helix is offering up to $200 off all mattress orders and 2 free pillows for our listeners at helixsleep.com/theforward. Nathaniel, thank you for doing this.
Oh, my pleasure, Lane.
Tell us, because I think we were talking just before we started. I mean, what a setup. And I was joking, kind of half joking, that we might just set up shop here. I mean, a permanent residency at the Skylark Lounge in Denver for the Forward podcast.
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. Got the great crew. What's the? I think I know a little of the backstory. So you guys bought this place
Correct. Yeah.
because it was
The previous owner, who had been the owner for quite some time, and the bar had located, it was down the street, down just north of here, a couple of blocks. And then this building came up for sale, which used to be 3 bottom storefronts, which most of the workers from Gates Rubber Plant used to eat at the diner, which is our corner entrance. That's a lot of information. Sorry. So he bought the place and kind of fixed it up. This used to be a game room up here, pool tables and shuffleboards and stuff. And now we've turned it into a venue. And yeah, this bar has been here. Previous owner actually built those inset lights, which is pretty cool. And I don't know if you noticed, but like the bottom part of the bar is actually old doors that he used. So it's pretty, you know.
We had a lot. I know you spent a lot of time in Austin. There's been a lot of that over the years as Austin has grown.
Yeah.
You know, going back, moved there in 1989, and the places we would always go see live music. You know, Liberty Lunch and Emos and all these places that, and even more on the country twangy side, Broken Spoke.
Yep.
They were in danger of completely going away. So you had a lot of them did go away, like Liberty Lunch. But you've had people, supporters of live music, supporters of local musicians come in and just buy, wealthy people just buy them, say it's never changing.
Yeah.
Like, Broken Spoke is going to stay the Broken Spoke. So I love that idea.
Yeah, and that was there was definitely a different vibe here, but we wanted this to stay a venue. There's been a few other things on Broadway that have kind of changed in a way that just didn't feel right to the neighborhood. And I lived in this neighborhood for at least 15 years, and so and then Bob, who is a good friend of mine I grew up with, who runs the bar. He lived in this neighborhood forever too. And so our other friends who still own businesses on this street, it's like, how do we preserve this the best we can?
Yeah.
While still trying to bring in something that's ours.
Well, Denver is on the path of Austin. I mean, we saw what happened to Austin, and it's one of these, as people leave the coast, I mean, Denver and places like Austin, those are attractive places. And then what happens is these cool old haunts get run out. And I should say big shout out to Bob, because you guys now carry our new vodka, Lift vodka,
right
which is great. Yep. And I want to get into your new spirits business, but that's cool. Got it over there on the bar back.
Yeah, you'll have to take that home with you. So there's one over there for you, but maybe you're only a clear
yours.
liquor.
Well, we have both of ours.
Oh, you have yours over there?
Yeah,
we have one as well.
We'll do a liquor swap.
Okay, sounds good.
So as I just, when I do these, I just, as much as I can, try to dive into people's lives. So read as much as I can, listen to other shows they've done, watch performances, and just try to glean like what their journey was. And your journey is pretty insane.
I still feel like I'm on it.
But
I don't feel like I
even
really,
better.
He really have got to a point where I feel like I've arrived.
But coming from a small town, well, quick question before we get to the small town. Do you pronounce it Missouri or Missouri?
I say Missouri.
Okay, because you're more on the western side, right?
Yep.
And so further east and south, they call it Missouri.
Yep.
Okay, so you come from Herman, Missouri.
Yep.
Which didn't sound like there was a whole hell of a lot going on there.
No, and that was like kind of one of the bigger towns we lived in but I always kind of considered that home. So we lived on, at times we lived even outside of there in smaller communities or even farther out, not in a community at all. So Herman has 2,500 people. We lived in a town that only had 60 at one point.
Wow.
So, but yeah, there's not a lot going on there. Even when I was a teenager, I had worked at a grocery store. I worked at a plastic factory twice.
Yeah.
So there wasn't a whole lot for me, and I wasn't going to start a bed and breakfast, which was kind of
60. Yeah, it's hard to sell rooms to 60 people, but music was always a part of your life, right? I mean, from
absolutely,
and of course, religion was a big part of your life, as I gather, and playing in the church band, and but you were always. I mean, at what point did you start? I think didn't you first play the drums?
I started off drums. I got my first kit when I was about 7, but then it took me a few years to really
Stay motivated. Or
get really motivated,
get into it.
And I think so. Like,
I've had a few 7-year-olds, so I know they're like, oh, this is Christmas Day. They just hit the shit out of it, and then all of a sudden they're like, it sits in the the storage for a couple of years.
Yeah, but then by the time I was like 10 or 11, I started to play like multiple hours a day, and then try to take lessons. But we were pretty broke, so I couldn't keep that up. So then I just ended up like kind of listening to cassettes, or back then you'd have a tape and you'd record what song came on the radio that you liked. You usually miss the beginning.
Put it as close as possible.
Yeah, you'd be like, yeah. So you make like mixtapes of songs or I would make mixtapes of songs that I like the drums and try to play along to them, that kind of stuff. But yeah, music was kind of early on. And then
you and Joseph Pope.
Yeah,
I don't know if he told you, but I had a very long conversation with Joseph day before yesterday.
I can see you guys bonded, I assume.
Well, I didn't know. I did.
Things,
yeah. So for the listener, I didn't know. We talked for close to an hour.
Yeah.
And I like to just sort of get around a person that I'm going to talk to and learn as much as I can about them. And so we were talking about you and growing up in Herman and fun stories, working at the Subway, playing all these stupid games. I'll tell a funny story in a second about a stupid game that we played growing up in Plano, Texas. But you guys stacking the boxes in the alleyway and just driving the shit out of your car like car bowling, basically. I thought, that sounds pretty fun. But we have this hour-long conversation, and then at the end he says, hey, just one more thing I wanted to tell you about. I was like, oh boy, here we go. This is going to be good. And he shared his experience with cancer and specifically testicular cancer. And but the way it was so cute, the way he led up to it, because I guess you guys were working at a truck yard.
Yep.
And a guy came up one day, and he's telling me this story. And I'm like, you guys thought it was a weird story when the guy came up and was like, hey, my buddy just had testicular cancer. And then he stopped telling the story, and you guys were like, that's weird. And so as he's telling it to me, I'm thinking, this is really weird.
Right.
And then he shared his experience, which then I was like,
Yeah, he really, Joseph he and I both try to cram a lot in our days. And then, in a week or two's time, he tried to, he found out his girlfriend at the time was pregnant and he had testicular cancer.
Right.
Just trying to get it all in.
Let's get it. Yeah, let's just get it over with. But he was, you guys have been just thick as thieves, and it's cool to see. There's a great quote in one of the articles where I think when you first played him some of the first Night Sweat stuff, as he tells it, he was convinced that was what he was going to do for the rest of his life. It was that powerful.
Right.
Which is amazing.
Well, yeah, and it was, the Night Sweats was something that I wanted to do for a long time, and I just couldn't figure out how to create that sound. And eventually my, kind of breakthrough was this song. The first song I wrote for the band was Trying So Hard Not to Know, which was I had been doing a version of The Shape I'm In, which we eventually did as the Night Sweats. And I kind of took the rhythm that I had changed that song into and then just kind of imagined what it would be like if the band and Sam and Dave had a band together. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of what kind of broke the seal for me. And then pretty quickly after that, I started, I think the next day I wrote and recorded Look at Here. The day after that, it was I Need Never Get Old. And then I wrote Howling at Nothing. And this is all that kind of happened in a weekend's time. But I was pretty diligent back then. But I was also ready to quit. So
right. One final shot, you're like, I better figure this shit out, otherwise back to the truck yard.
Yeah, and I didn't really know what it was gonna be. And by that time, I had even quit trucking and was a gardener, and so I didn't. Falling back into trucking didn't seem like the thing I was gonna do either.
I'm not very good at either of those, but if I had to pick, I'd probably pick gardening myself.
It is a pretty nice job.
Yeah, outside and
yeah.
But let's go back to Herman, because this was not. I mean, you guys were really, as I read it, really really poor.
Yeah,
and even I think you said on the Andy Frasco podcast, which by the way I really enjoyed.
Oh, right.
This dude's a character.
Yeah,
we all got to up our game. I was listening to that. I was out skinning up the mountain, and I listened to it on the way up, and I said, "Fuck."
I better lift, man. I better pick it up. This guy's good. So, but he, you were telling stories of how, not having enough to pay the electricity or the gas bill, having to sleep in front of the open stove with the electric stove on just so you guys could stay warm. I mean, that's stuff that, I feel like I don't know that I grew up poor, but certainly didn't grow up with money.
Right.
But I damn sure never slept in front of an open stove.
Yeah, we would have to, everybody pile into the kitchen and open up the regular oven, and it was electric, so we weren't paying for that, and
Right.
just crank the oven and try to stay warm in sleeping bags on the floor, which, now, like in hindsight, my parents had a way of making that stuff feel fun somehow, and I think it's like,
fun.
How do your parents protect you from struggle and tragedy? They did their best, but but so now you look back and it's kind of funny,
Right.
But yeah.
Well, then what certainly wasn't funny was the passing of your dad.
Yeah.
Again, I believe you were playing a show in the church band, 13 years old, right around 13.
Yep.
And Dad's coming to the church to see the show.
Well, he actually was. My mom was like the leader of the church group, church band. I was playing drums, and my sister was also singing and sometimes playing piano. My mom played guitar and sang, and her and my dad wrote a lot of religious songs together. So my dad was on his way from the town we lived in at that time, which was Bay, or outside of Bay. And yeah, he always took these gravel roads as a shortcut, and so he'd just be hauling ass on these gravel roads.
Man after my own heart.
Yeah, and just happened to randomly meet somebody else on the intersection and got hit, and so he was actually running late for church, which he would have never done. And so he showed up, or he didn't show up. They like stopped the service because the hospital called him and said that he had been in an accident, and we went to the hospital, and it was very surreal. And yeah, by the time we got there, he'd already passed. So, but I was pretty young then, and then I was in the 7th grade at that point, and for a while I was homeschooled, so I'd just gone back to regular school. But I never went back after that. That was the end of the. That was
You
like,
didn't go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I read that.
He passed in May 18th, and then I just never went back. So I never got any kind of formal education other than that 7th grade. So
Right. Yeah, we have a 7th grader. So just hearing you tell this story and thinking about, he is. When I see him, he's an amazing kid, but he is a little boy.
Oh, I was already like cutting yards for money. I'm talking like half acre.
Yeah.
With like
And by the way, I don't want to get into what probably either you or I were doing in the 7th grade.
Yeah.
Because this shit's not good. But seeing him, and you're still a boy. You're still,
right.
You're 12, 13 years old, and to be left without a father and to be, shooken or shaken like that and surprised, and then to. I think that really, maybe, we all sort of find this moment where we sort of turn from little boy to, young man to man.
Right.
You were forced, right? And if what I read is true, then, a couple of years later, you're then a janitor. The arc of this story, Nathaniel, is so unbelievable. I hope you appreciate that. I think you probably do. It's very hard to be the person
right.
to live inside of it and then to step out of it and then to observe and appreciate the arc of stories. But, then you're a janitor at the school, which you should have been going to.
Right. I was 16 at that point, like 16 and 17, yeah.
But you're with kids that were your classmates.
I had moved to a different town, so I would have
Well, they would have been your classmates.
Yeah. But I was hanging out with these old guys who were the head of the maintenance and landscaping crew, and doing 10-hour shifts in the in Missouri heat. I actually liked it, and for whatever reason I didn't really think that. The only time that it really bothered me is when I was actually walking to the janitor's closet, because a lot of times I was on the maintenance crew, so I didn't have to see any kids, and so I wasn't like embarrassed about what I was doing. But going to when I would actually have to work inside and work as a janitor, that was always embarrassing. Like I thought I looked pretty cool with my ponytail and my janitor's keys, and I tried to like hide them in my pocket, and then you know, like walk down the hall kind of at the end of the day and kind of like, you know, you're looking at other kids and girls and hoping you're being paid attention to. And then I would sneak over to the closet and unlock the door and like hide in there until everybody had left. But
I don't think they fell for that. I don't think they.
yeah,
were
I
like,
doubt they fell for it.
there was.
You know?
There's a new kid. I haven't seen this kid before. He just must have just moved here. Guy with the ponytail and the keys hanging out. I don't think they fell for that.
No, I don't think so either. But I remember my sister saying that like one of like her friends was like, "Who's this guy that always hangs out?" He's like, "Should be in school and he's working." It's like he's cute. She's like, "That's my brother." So, but yeah,
And here we are. You know, you're you know, I don't know how many, you probably sell out Red Rocks 3 or 4 nights in a row.
yeah,
I mean, think about that, right? That kid sneaking the keys out to get into the, you know, pull his shit out to do a job that nobody wants to do, to that. I mean, that's so inspiring. Amazing.
thanks, man. I mean, like I said, it's hard to look back at it. You know, I think, you know, even like going through therapy on my own, it's like, it's hard to take some of it seriously or talk about it in a way that's like affects me emotionally. You know, like I think all that hardship, you know, certainly made me who I am. But
Right.
yeah, I don't know.
How much therapy do you do? Because I'm a big fan of therapy.
I got-
I'm not asking the question.
Yeah.
You know, like the guy that does like the, you know, once a month talk therapy bullshit.
Yeah.
Like no.
I got
I'm
a
big
weekly
fan.
thing right now.
Yeah.
But I'm
You-
still
you-
trying to see if it's the right fit. But then I kind of, you know, like sometimes I feel like my therapy is a bit of a discussion about therapy with my therapist.
Oh.
Like, you know, because I do feel like with that, like everybody, you know, like I guess one of the mantras I have is that like everybody writes their own story. So, you know, and that's even goes back into looking at my life, like all the hardship, in like being victimized by it or choosing to write, you know, a better end to my own story, you know, even though that was the beginning. So we all have these ideas about ourselves and our perceived selves. And so that's going to affect how you're really going to communicate with your therapist.
Of course.
Because they're only going to get this side of your perceived self and not your true self. So it's almost like, does your therapist need to talk to everyone around you? I'm just
Right.
food for thought.
Yeah.
You know, so sometimes I kind of start analyzing my therapist, and my new guy did kind of do this. Like our first session was a bit of a red flag because he's like, started talking about a book he wrote. And then that immediately made me think of what about Bob when he goes to see the therapist. And the therapist is like, there's a great book out right now. I think it'll help you out. It's like right here. And so I was like, is this guy Dr. Leo Marvining me right now? But yeah, I still try to go. I try to do like the Hoffman Institute.
Oh.
And
You
so
went or
that's-
you tried to go?
I was going to go, but they ended up canceling it because of COVID. So I was going
Right.
to do the week immersive, but then I ended up doing a 3-day online all-day Zoom thing, which was kind of a nightmare too.
Right. Yeah.
And then I took some stuff away from it, but I think what mostly I took away is there's not a singular answer to what what the human experience and journey is, and like you can't go to one class and you can't,
Right.
I can't just go to the therapist. I can't start doing Pilates or none of it, like, or meditation or cold
Right, yeah,
plunges.
there's-
Like I've done all of it.
Oh, wait, the
like-
cold plunge just heals all of our life's trauma. Fuck.
Yeah, I mean,
This is where
it worked for
We're
Wim
onto
Hof,
something.
You
Just-
know, like I did do another class, like, and it was here in Denver, and it was like a Wim Hof training thing, and I had already been doing some of the breathing exercises, but the two teachers were definitely like this. The Wim Hof method was like their new religion.
Yeah.
And then so I was like, well, it's like I'm glad it's working for them, but then like it's just sort of a facade to me.
Yeah.
Like it's only going to last for a certain amount of time. Then you're going to be back to boozing and losing.
That's why I'm a fan of the 80-20. 80% of the time you try to be good. You eat well, you get
Right.
your rest. 20% of the time you just completely fuck shit up.
Yeah.
So that's another part of our bill.
It's just about getting to that percentage.
Yeah.
You got to get the 80 in there, you know. Sometimes it's
well,
like
nobody's counting. I mean, it's 70,
60, 40.
Yeah, 60. It's better than, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But we have a lot of friends that have gone to Hoffman, Anna and myself. And,
Okay.
And I'm a huge fan of that. I think people make the commitment, you know, obviously a week out of their lives, not to mention completely detached from society.
Yeah.
Right. And most of these programs like that, you know, there's other ones like On-Site in Tennessee, where just literally handing over your phone, your computer, your iPad, your Apple Watch, you know, being in a room with no television, no radio, no nothing.
Yeah.
Like you would not know if, you know, Russia invaded Ukraine or the Rams won the Super Bowl or there was a new strand of COVID. Like you would have no idea. You would get out and be like, whoa, what the fuck happened? But that in and of itself is so powerful. But I think just making the commit, and I think, you know, you're obviously a very famous guy now. It's you know, being around others. And there's always good. I would think I would struggle with a group.
Yeah, I mean, even you know, I've been wanting to do like ayahuasca ceremony, but I don't know if I can.
That's
do
another
it with a
chapter
group
in the
of,
book. We've got the ice plunges.
Yeah.
What was the other one? The whatever, and then ayahuasca. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
We'll talk offline about that.
Yeah, I've been wanting to do a ceremony, but then I don't know if I can do it with a bunch of other people who are gonna. I think like it needs to be one-on-one. And you know, and
I've never done it, so I don't know.
I haven't either.
But my sense, but just I'll state for the record, I'm damn sure not opposed to that.
No.
But my sense is you might start all together, like the first day, like drinking tea and eating veggies and doing some yoga. I think after that, nobody's together.
Right.
So there's that to look forward to.
There is like we did have one of my buddies who was a trainer. He went to a ceremony. And he's the only person who's like, in the middle of the ceremony, he's like, stop playing the fucking drums, man. He's like, I just need a fucking beer. And they're like, people started to get around him. He's like, don't fucking touch me. He's like, they're like, you shouldn't have a beer right now. He's like, I've tripped harder than this. I'm fucking out of here. And he got up and left. He's like, I went and had a fucking beer. So I don't.
Maybe he didn't drink enough or didn't have enough of the.
Oh no, I think he at some point in time consumed enough other hallucinogenics that like
his threshold was seriously manipulated.
He was like, I don't know what it's all about. I think it's bullshit. I was like, all right, bud. I was like, it maybe for you, yeah. But
we'll talk offline about this.
Yeah,
and I think there's, and this is what I love about this sort of time and place that we live in, because I think there's so much work to be done. There's so much new research, or actually it's not new research, but just sort of reopening old research and building upon that, whether it's ayahuasca or MDMA or LSD or psilocybin, like that.
Right.
You know, all this stuff that was shut down under President Nixon is now being revisited.
Right.
And you know, it's so much stigma around it and misperception. Oh, you know, MDMA, these fucking kids out doing Molly at the rave. No, I mean, we're talking where I get in. I get that happens, right? But when and we're totally going off course here, but let's finish. We'll put a bow on it. But when you talk about soldiers and warriors and the military coming back with just insurmountable PTSD, when
Right.
these things, I mean, I'm not a scientist, but certainly looks like there's promise there for these folks. So
Absolutely.
I mean, let's go.
Agreed. You know, and I think there's a lot to be discovered with the human mind, and you know, these things are, you know, a way to potentially open that up and for people to have better understanding.
Right.
You know.
And to just circle back on, because what is PTSD? PTSD is post-traumatic stress disorder, traumatic trauma. So we don't have to have been, although I know you did see a guy get clocked over the head with an iron bar outside of an early gig here in Denver. Poor guy didn't make it. That's trauma. You know, losing your father, you know, the show stops when you're 13. Somebody rushes in and said, got to stop, I got to go to the hospital. That's trauma.
Absolutely.
All the baggage and stuff we go through in life, it's all trauma. Like we don't have to have been in a foreign war and lost 10 of your buddies to have gone through trauma. And so it's a lot of, I mean, I know my life, man, it's just so completely fucked up. That's why I'm a fan of this work. Like that's the only way to go back in and unwind that stuff.
Right.
otherwise you just go crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I think all the different things that I've done, whether it's Wim Hof or the Hoffman Institute, therapy, it's really trying to better understand myself,
Right.
like, even like trying to push yourself physically is like trying to figure out your own limits.
I call it church.
Yeah, going to church.
Yeah, man, that's my church. Like that's why winters just kill me. But summers, long bike rides, all alone, talking to yourself, pushing yourself, yelling at yourself. That's like that's my church.
Right.
But you finally end up here in Denver. I love this story, at least as I believe it happened. I mean, you and Joseph come to this city. This up in God, that was probably
It was in 98.
1998. This was it was a town,
Yeah.
not even a city. You come with what were they called? The youth with a mission.
YWAM.
Yeah, YWAM. Joseph
The
called it.
acronym, yeah.
Yeah, and that was your direct flight out of Herman, Missouri.
Yeah, we did. That was like to explain what that organization is. It's a non-denominational Christian organization, which is kind of interesting way to say that. But in the first part of the schooling is all very focused on yourself, because how are you supposed to go out and minister to people? And that was, it's essentially a missionary organization. How are you supposed to go out and help other people if you're not healed yourself? So the first, I can't remember how many months it was, or maybe it's 6 weeks of like kind of inward focused work, and that was probably the first time in my life that I started to look at my life as actually being traumatic, and talking to other people about the experiences in my childhood that were traumatic. And I didn't know that. I just thought that that's kind of like what life was in Missouri, and what was happening in my family was, happening to everybody.
Right.
But yeah, I think in all of that, what I did start to discover is that I didn't know if I was actually a believer. And once you're done with the beginning portion of what they call discipleship training, and working on yourself, you go out and minister to people, and we were supposed to go to Mexico. Well, we just had a lot of issues on the way. We only made it to,
sometimes that happens when
we made it to like Ensenada and Mexicali, but we actually ended up kind of getting hung up in Haute Villa and Hopi Land, which is kind of inside the Navajo reservation, outside of like Flagstaff, Arizona, and Tuba City are kind of the two towns nearest to that, from what I can recall. But yeah, in my time there, I always had a love and interest in Native American culture and history and just their belief system. I just kind of started to feel like maybe we were wrong.
I started to pick their brain.
Yeah, and just like, and some of them you didn't have to even ask them questions. It's like they're the way a lot of the people that I was spending time with just had a connection to everything. They had a connection to the way they planted their corn, and the way they would pray for rain, and
Right.
and everything around them. And that made me, I don't know, it just started to make me question everything that I had learned.
And YWAM wanted you guys just ran into the Native Americans, or their intention was to sort of convert?
Yeah, from what I remember is the Hopi have a pretty similar story of this like sort of savior character. And there was a family of missionaries living just outside of the reservation that had been working with the people in Haute Villa for some time and trying to kind of convert them into thinking or believing that Christianity and the Hopi beliefs are the same. And they do have similarities, but, I think, who knows?
It reminds me of we spent a lot of time in Hawaii, and as the story goes, and Native Hawaiians are very, very similar to Native Americans and the Indian population. But a true Native Hawaiian would reenact the story like this. we had the land, and the white man had the Bible. After some time, we had the Bible, and they had the land.
Right.
So, not dissimilar. I mean, that's a pretty dramatic
That's
depiction.
a short way of explaining Western expansion, though, for
Right,
sure.
right. Yeah. So, and enough I can tell for you to just all of a sudden, on your journey down there, I go, wait a minute. Maybe I should reset here.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly made me question. And then, once you start to realize that, like, all these things that happen in your life that are traumatic, and then start to, like, question the existence of God, and, like, well, then, if God is omnipotent, then, like, how could he see all of this happen in my life, and there's no hand of influence, and, only hardship, and it's, and it's still sometimes I see, people that I love and care about that still struggle the same way. And I think when I decided to kind of relinquish the fear and guilt that came with Christianity, and just do what I thought was best, my life started to work out. So.
Oh, no, I mean,
Think
about it. I mean, it's pretty, you said you tried your best to say that in a simple way. I think that's a pretty heavy and poignant way and powerful way to remember it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a pretty, I did have a moment on that mission trip where I got stuck in a riptide on Mission Beach in San Diego, which the beaches in San Diego are pretty rough, especially with a kid who still had, corn in his ears from Missouri. But I definitely thought I was going to die. And so I was definitely calling out to somebody,
Right.
And then eventually, surfers saved me, but it was, me and two other guys on that trip so... Yeah, you kind of have there was a moment where I was like, maybe God is real because I just got saved, or maybe I just got lucky and I got saved.
Very thankful that those surfers were there.
Oh,
those
absolutely,
human beings on surfboards.
Yeah.
Who went out to help you.
Yeah.
Pretty damn good deal.
Yeah.
And I look, the people who listen to me or follow me forever, they know my position on religion, and I'm actually way more open to it now than God, if you'd asked me 10, 20 years ago, I said, Nathaniel, stop with this religious shit right now. And it's fun to be at this point at 50 years old and just sort of be like, we had this story the other day, and I actually caught myself. My daughter, who's 11, who is, by the way, just force in nature, I came home from work, and I said to Anna, where's Olivia? And she said, she went down to that church on the corner with her friend Tessa. And I actually said this, and Anna's sitting right here. I said, what the hell, what? And I caught myself, and I'm like, hang on. And I didn't. I should have corrected it out loud and verbally. But I thought, why not?
I had the same thing. My stepdaughter, her mother was a pretty staunch, I wouldn't say atheist, I don't even know, but
agnostic.
She was raised Catholic, so she did not like Catholicism or Christianity at all. Where, at times, even if I don't know what I believe or not too concerned about it, if somebody says they're praying for me, just thank you. I'm not like, you're a fucking idiot.
Right.
My ex-wife's approach was like, you're a fucking idiot. And so, during the pandemic, I remember, calling my stepdaughter around Easter. I was like, what are you doing? And she was with her best friend. I was like, what are you guys doing? And her best friend was like, we're going to listen to this service today, this church we've kind of been going to. And I was like, right on. I was like, that's cool. I was like, I wanted to be like, do not tell your mother. But it's like, it's her, she was raised with sort of, Buddhist beliefs and all these other things, and how to be accepting, with the one exception of not being accepting of religious beliefs,
right,
or Christian and Catholic beliefs. And so I was just like, it's your own journey. You go out and discover what works for you. And,
yeah, for sure. For sure. Okay, so you're saved by these surfers, whether God did it or those friendly surfers out there did it, and then, man, you're like, I'm out. I'm going back. I'm gonna try to make it as a musician. Because obviously, I guess you were still playing music the whole time, not maybe aspiring to sell out arenas, but
kind of as soon as Joseph and I left YWAM, we try to find a place to rehearse. And we decided to stay in Denver because there wasn't much opportunity in Missouri. And then through, like, oddly enough, through YWAM, somebody knew somebody, and they gave us each jobs at this trucking company called GI Trucking, which is now Estes Freight Line. So we started doing that. Joseph eventually got fired because he hitchhiked to California.
And didn't show up?
Yeah.
Well, you know.
I think, yeah, so.
He did not tell, when we had our hour-long,
didn't tell you that?
He left that part out.
Yeah, well, it's a pretty interesting story. I think, everybody was reading on the road at that time, and he just decided to do it one night. And so we got a bus to Salt Lake, which is the wrong direction if you're trying to go to San Diego.
Yeah.
So, but
Right.
But anyhow, I got fortunate that I had this job that I didn't need to have a high school education, and I stayed there for 10 years. So
Wow.
I was vested in all the things, but I could never move up in the company. Not that I had really ambitions to be management without even a bachelor's, and
Right.
I didn't imagine that would happen. But eventually on occasion, I had like vacation, and I would use it to tour and try to plan around it. But then more and more, I just wanted, it was, luckily I was young enough, but there's, a lot of years where it's like, I wouldn't get home until 3 a.m, and I would
from
be
playing a gig, though.
Yeah, and I would be back at work at 6, and so that was, Joseph and I's life for a long time. And so eventually I wanted more time to really pursue music, and I kind of quit without knowing what I was going to do. And then a good friend of mine offered me a job to work for her and her mom doing landscaping and fine garden. And I have a knack for it because I grew up doing it. And so kind of immediately they bumped up my pay to basically what I was making at the trucking company, $20 an hour, which was pretty good money for no high school diploma.
Not as good as now, but
yeah, it was then, yeah.
That was then, and this is now.
But I mean, I was still, I could make like $40,000 a year with overtime, and that seemed like pretty good to me. And for a long time,
and the corporate gigs are fetching what now? I'm just kidding. Don't answer it. Don't answer it.
I don't know.
one song.
Yeah.
But I want to get this right. So are you gardening like in people's houses? Are we talking like office complexes or?
All the above.
Because I want to know if any of
there
these
was
people there's Nathaniel out there, our gardener, that have now reconnected.
I
the whole
wasn't really
story.
to a level where people knew me.
Got it.
At that point. I think towards the end things started to happen, and like people I worked for was like, oh, you're gonna go do such and such, but the Night Sweats were still kind of. I guess I did. Yeah, I kind of did it up until the Night Sweats, and then it just like quickly changed. But yeah, those folks were a blessing to me because they were like, yeah, just go, and when you come home, you can work. It's not a big deal. And then since I built relationships with the clients, I could just show up, and it wasn't like there was a stranger on their property. But you'd come back from. I was doing a lot of like solo touring in Europe, and I thought at one point I was going to move there. Or to London because I had built a good fan base there. I mean, by good, I mean, I could play to 150 to maybe 500 people
Very good.
on certain places. And so you can build a career off of that. And, but then when the Night Sweat started, it just kind of all changed. And even when we first found out we were going to play Fallon, it was the first Night Sweats tour in Europe because since I had built up so much work over there on my own and kind of people were coming to see the Night Sweats, but when they told us we were going to play Fallon, I think we were playing a show in Germany, and everybody was having a pretty rough day because there had been a few shows of people like arms crossed, not really understanding what the Night Sweats were or why wasn't. And for your German listeners, they can come across as a little critical. So, and they're very vocal about it, so they'd be like,
JB's German.
I
Don't worry about him.
What's the last time you were here? The song so
This
very
is
nice.
is it always a Scheiße?
Yeah, and this is Scheiße. Yeah.
So yeah, I heard a cute story. Chris, your longtime manager, told me that, and Marcus Mumford has become a good bud, but that I didn't even know this till Chris told me, but before he was Marcus Mumford and Mumford and Sons and the band that everybody knows. He spent a year in Denver coaching soccer.
Yeah,
as all British people do.
Football. And
he credits this again, according to Chris. He credits, and he would come to your gigs as a soccer coach, football coach. And again, according to Chris, he credits coming to your shows as being the inspiration for him to say, you know what, I want to try this. And then that
I know, he was like, look at this goofy looking lead singer. He doesn't look like a lead singer at all. Yeah.
Well, hey. Amazing story.
Yeah, and he, Marcus has told me that as well. That was the project Joseph and I started called Born in the Flood, which we had in Missouri before YWAM, and then, just kind of, it went through a lot of different, I don't know, like at one point we had 2 drummers, and we kind of sounded like the Allman Brothers.
Which and then there was a period, terrible.
Yeah, no. And then there was a period where I was listening to like Sticky Fingers and the Strokes and the Cramps, and then so we started to sound kind of like that.
Right.
And then there was also like, I think everybody wanted to sound like Radiohead back then. Like any musician was like, list your influences. Like, well, Radiohead, and then so there's stuff that definitely sounded like it was influenced by Radiohead as well. But yeah, But Marcus was coming to those shows, and so I was like, man, we kind of got lucky because there was a potential for that band to sign a record deal, and it just didn't feel right to me, and I said no. And I kind of had wondered what would have happened had we been thrown into the mix when I was like 27 instead of waiting until I was in my mid-30s.
And son of a bitch, Brett, you're 43 now? Mm-hmm. And so you would have been 38
or 39.
38, yeah.
Yeah, it was probably
and this song, I don't even need to say, I mean, this song was everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, almost like too much everywhere. Like you got played so much. I mean, you must have been like, wait, what? Overnight, what happened? Whoa.
Well, and there was an idea, from the label and other folks, and I'm really blessed to have Chris Titzelli as my manager because he was like trying to keep it from being, he's like, if we could push this thing to make it huge, he's like, I've gotten requests for like, kind of a Disney version of it. And I was like, I don't even know
Son of a gun.
How
Bring me a
I
Kool-Aid.
would write that. I was like,
just try it.
And so it was
humorous, just try it. Son of a gun.
Oh no, I will refuse to. I was like, the song's called S.O.B. Like, what are you we're gonna change the
Son
name?
Of a bandit.
Change all the words.
Son of a bum.
Well, yeah, and it was like also like nobody wanted to play it at college radio because it had the word bitch in it, and I totally understand. And I was like, well, I would never call my mother a bitch, and yeah,
right.
I don't know. Regardless of vernacular. Anyhow, Chris kind of held it back from going to like pushing it, trying to push it even more, because we felt like that wasn't the best song on the record. It just happened to be the one that really blew up.
Fire.
But it gave us the opportunity to get out in the world, and it got me my first commercial, which I was skeptical of doing because I kind of grew up in an environment that was selling out, that like you didn't do that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Like you played music and suffered. You didn't make money, and then I remember Kia asked me to be a part of a commercial, and it was just me being me, which was totally. Is it in your folder?
I got no. Just keep going.
I didn't get a car out of that either. But so
this has
anybody
more
from
this has more
Kia.
to do with a. This is when you're good.
Yeah.
No, this has more to do with a pool than a.
But I remember, I called.
Oh, wait, they used that song in a car commercial. How did they get around that?
They didn't use it in the car commercial. I did. I played dueling banjos, and didn't even sing. I just showed up, and I was
Cha-ching.
Yeah, exactly.
So somebody says to you, and this is in the Garden and Gun, which is perfect for you because I know you hunt a little bit, and I know you like to garden.
I did a lot.
This is I never even heard of this magazine, but I printed this out. And somebody asked you, they ask you about success, and you said, "How's success?" "I'm still broke," he says, chuckling. "Success will be when I can have a real swimming pool instead of the $50 one I buy at Kmart every year. But I don't want to get robbed of any authenticity to try and make money." I mean, that's exactly the point you just made. And yeah, that's right.
And I mean, even when I had the opportunity to do the commercial, I called Joseph and I was like, "What do you think?" And he was like, "What are they paying you?" And I told him, he's like, "Do it, man." He's like, "It's," he's like, "This is the kind of stuff we worked our lives for, is for to have opportunity."
Yeah.
And if it's like you're not using one of your songs, it's not, it's like it's just you doing a goofy thing that not everybody's going to see.
And you don't have to have that Kmart swimming pool anymore.
No, I do have a real pool. No. You like to swim laps, though, don't you?
I love it.
Yeah.
It's my favorite sport in the world.
Yeah.
What did you do some research?
I watched a documentary on you a while back ago. Yeah.
Oh, you did?
I did, yeah.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, no, you can't get away. Yeah.
No, I haven't gotten away with very much in my life.
Yeah.
But I do love swimming. So good memory. Wow. Yeah, that you got me there, Nathaniel.
Stumped you, sorry. Yeah.
How tough was it? I know Richard Swift was super important to you, to lose him and certainly in the middle of your rocket just completely taking off.
Richard and I, it was, I still remember the first night. I had met him years ago backstage in London when I was opening up for Delta Spirit, and he just happened to be in town, and that was our first interaction. And then I didn't see or hear from him probably for another year or two, probably 2 years. And at that point, I had already made all these Night Sweats demos, and a friend was like, "You should send these to Richard," and I was like, "Oh yeah," I was like, "I forgot about Richard." I was like, "He produces music," and just had no idea what he was up to.
He was in the Shins. And
yeah,
he was in,
exactly. He was doing a lot of stuff.
I love the Shins.
And so I sent him, these garage band recordings I was doing, and then he called me one night, and we immediately connected, and then I was like, okay, well, let's make this record. And then that was even before the label came back, and my A&R guy was like, well, how would you feel about considering working with Richard Swift? I was like, I already talked to him on the phone. He's down. And he was like, really? I was like, yeah. And so it seemed like, it just was very natural. And so I went out there on my own. And then Patrick Meese came out a little bit later. But Richard and I had a lot in common. We struggled with a lot of the same stuff.
Right. I was going to add to it. I mean, this theme of drinking and alcohol, which, again, the people that listen to this know I'm a huge a fan of that.
Sorry.
Those things.
Say, I'm a huge alcoholic.
No, I don't. You had another great quote in one of the articles where you said, I think it's time to dial it back so that I'm not forced to stop forever.
Yeah.
I 100% agree with that. There's times where you're like, oh, fuck, am I going to lose my license here to have this kind of fun? Let's just pull it back and make sure that doesn't happen. But the themes of, obviously, his loss and what that meant to you, but obviously, losing him to
alcoholism.
To alcoholism, it had to be, because you talk a lot about, having a good time, having some drinks.
We're in an industry that
it's
when you think of rock and roll, that's what you think about. The bands that are celebrated are, they're generally not celebrated for their sobriety.
Right.
Did
you see The Dirt? Motley Crue's
I did, yeah.
I mean,
I thought it was entertaining.
I loved
it. Yeah.
How much did he drink? I mean, is this when you were with him, were you like, wow, this guy is off the rails, or because it seems?
No, I was keeping pace with him, so we were. He would sometimes drink more without me.
Got it.
But while we were together, we were
neck and neck,
and then the next day we'd be like, we gotta pull our shit together and And then it would be like, if you drink a gallon of water a day, you can lose weight. And then, that would last for like a day, So always doing things in extremes. And, I do still, and it's, kind of always trying to find that balance. And Richard kind of did the same thing. And I
80-20.
What's that?
80-20,
yeah. And I think that's the thing when you think of, I guess when I think of an artist and someone who's tapping into something that's outside of themselves, sometimes that stuff does show up when you're kind of outside of yourself. I never finish songs that way, but ideas start that way. It allows me to like hear things, and I certainly wouldn't recommend that to anybody. But that's kind of like a delicate dance of like how easy is it to just go too far and not come back.
Because he wasn't old.
No, he wasn't. He was 41.
40s. Yeah. Wow.
But yeah, it was Richard's role in what we did. Richard had a way of making things sound really cool, and also, he was also very blunt about certain things. What also would, our relationship was, I would be like, I really like this in the song. He's like, oh, I'll put it back in, because I would, like one time I brought him a song. I was like, I had it demoed out and I was playing drums and had a bunch of stuff in it. I was like, what do you think of this one? He's like, it sounds like a shitty Tom Petty song. I was like, okay. So we're not going to, so just skip it. We're not even going to try to work on it. And then, another song we had for our second record, we'd recorded a bunch of stuff in this house we rented in the desert, and kind of woodshed it out there, and then brought that to Richard. And then, I wrote this one song called Coolin' Out around this guitar thing I had written, and it was the first thing that Richard eliminated from the track. He's like, all right, let me start playing around with this mix, and and it's like guitar's gone. This guy, he's like, yeah, there's just too many of those in there, and I was like, well, I thought that was the whole song, but that's a way of like you need somebody to do that, because you're not always right, but you need somebody that you feel is like your equal or somebody who's challenged you enough to push back on what you think is important. And I think, I didn't know what we were going to do for the Night Sweats after Richard passed. And, I did an entire solo record that he and I were going to do. And so I tried to keep my commitment to him and started the record, and It's Still All Right, at his studio after he passed, which was very heavy and cathartic to be there, especially the songs were about him, it was about what he was going through a divorce, I was going through a divorce, our workload wasn't changing, our drinking wasn't changing, and so I didn't really know, I don't know, it was a fine line of trying not to fall apart, but yeah, once he, I finished that record. Yeah, I'm kind of drifting here. Sorry.
No. You wrote a great lyric about him after he passed, which
in Rush On.
Rush On. You say, "I'd hoped it would heal, or you'd wake
when it was over.
When it was over. Rush on. If now you sleep forever."
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean,
and also, I kind of talk about. In that song, in a handful of those songs, but in that song, what is that? I hoped like a prayer that your broken list would leave you, but months turned to years, and the weakness over. I can't remember. God damn it, I forgot my own words. But
how bad was it for me to actually read? I started reading the lyric, and I was like, I'm such an idiot. Like he should be saying the lyric.
Oh, no, it's fine. I wasn't.
You wrote it. You said it. You did it.
Yeah.
You say it every night on stage. So.
That song was hard to play, and even after a while, everybody in the band, because most of the guys in Night Sweats were in that project, and we only got to do 10 shows before the pandemic really hit. But, it was one of those songs where just like, we can't really, like, do we have to rehearse this again?
Tough to get
it felt heavy, and it's like I wanted to have the conversation about what it is to feel brokenness, and why don't people talk about it when it is a human experience, and
drama.
we all make it so singularly ours when it is something that should be a shared experience, because I think it's something that everybody feels from time to time. And
Right.
but it has the potential to overwhelm you and overwhelm everything in your life, and that's the only thing you see is the darkness. So.
Yeah. Look, I want to be mindful of your time. I know we're at about an hour, but I don't want to leave here without talking about your work with the Marigold Project.
Yeah.
And on top of that, because sadly, just a couple months ago, these fires there in Boulder County. I know you're doing some benefits.
Yeah.
With Scott Abott, the Abott brothers. I think they're chipping out. I don't know if you know the story of what happened to his childhood home.
No.
Scott Abott, yeah. I'll show you when we get done. But his childhood home, and he's a fabulous painter.
Okay.
We actually have a few of his pieces. He's become a dear friend. But either the home or the barn just burned to the ground. Had like 50 paintings in it, guitars.
Oh, wow.
He grew up in a very musical family. So I'm sure that means a lot to him. I mean, he's a super, super generous guy anyways, but you guys are doing those gigs to help those people affected, which is, by the way, like if anybody hasn't seen what that fire looks like or what it did,
Right.
I mean, it's apocalyptic.
I mean, it's whole neighborhoods that are just burned
Gone.
to the ground. Yeah.
To the ground and some.
Well, when I just did a press conference for it the other day with Governor Polis, and what I didn't know is a lot of those homes are like kind of middle income families, so a lot of them are underinsured. So with the insurance money, they could potentially build a quarter of their home that they were living in.
Right.
And also with the property value. It just
stuff,
makes it
like
so difficult.
When that happened, I was like, I mean, there's a party that's like, okay, they have insurance, they're going to rebuild the house. But I would challenge anybody to just, you don't have to be long, 5 minutes, walk through your house and just and look at every single thing. Look at that photograph that'll never come back. Look at that piece of art that is your favorite piece of art that will never come back.
Yeah.
Or stuff that's stuffed in drawers or closets, the shit that's in there that's important that will never come back. So, I mean,
it's also not about the financial side of it. I lost a $200 guitar on a tour. Like, we got on a flight and it never surfaced. I don't even know what happened to it. But, it's like there was a lot of magic in that thing, and it had nothing to do with how much I paid for it.
Right.
And so, and even
a lot of memories.
Yeah, exactly.
And then Marigold?
Yeah, Marigold is an endowment that we started. We do a lot of work with a lot of different people and organizations. So we give out grants at the end of the year.
Even better, you don't have to run it.
I know.
You know what I'm saying?
Well,
it
and it's like
there as a collective, and you sort of look around at the worthiest causes, all the things you guys probably look at, the most efficiently run and the best leadership, the causes that are near and dear or certainly present at that time.
Yeah, and I mean, it's part of it is community building, so we try to work with community-based organizations that are doing the work that we'd like to be doing, but a lot of times people come in with an idea how to help people, and that is not the right way to approach it. We wanted to come in and ask people what they needed, like sometimes for, some of the shelters here, we're like, what can you do? And they're like, we need socks. We need people need fresh, clean socks, and it can be just that simple. Whereas we also, advocated for the change of gun legislation here in Colorado, which did happen. So we do everything from trying to work with unhoused people. I still think Western water conservation is a big thing, but that's one of those things we're going to try to.
It's good. It's getting tough.
Well, yeah.
And because I heard you say this in a couple of the pods that I listened to, and at first the first time I heard you say it, I thought he said unhoused, and then I listened to some more stuff when you talked about Marigold, and you said it again, and I thought, oh, he means to say unhoused as opposed to homeless.
Yeah.
I've never heard anybody say unhoused. I think that's a great.
It was also a thing that I
of,
actually started to hear and did the same thing, and then kind of even started to talk to Carrie, who helps us run the foundation, and homeless is sort of derogatory, you know, or some, you know, in some ways it makes you think of someone, you know, in the same regard as like hobo is derogatory. And it kind of gives guilt to the person who is without a home when it's not necessarily their fault, you know? And so we, I guess like trying to take that away.
Rebranding.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I always talk about these, you know, different sectors or industries that went and rebranded. You know, the liquor business went to the spirits business.
Right.
Gambling went to gaming. Big oil went to the energy sector. So there's these tweaks.
Climate crisis changed to, what?
Yeah, I don't know. I wish it would change, but but I just kept noticing you say that, and I was like, I think, wait, he means to say that. Like that's just, and it makes sense. So good for you.
Yeah, I mean, Joseph and I first kind of started doing that kind of work with YWAM, and it stuck with me forever. That the need to treat people who are unhoused like they're actually people, and instead of like second-rate citizens.
Right. Can we give them a shout out? Is there a place to go? Is there a website or anything?
Yeah, they're marigoldproject.org.
Marigoldproject.org.
But then if you go to nathanielrateliff.com, all that information's there as well. So.
Did I hear you got a gig planned maybe later in the year? Big gig? Like a really big gig? Never mind.
I mean, like which one?
I don't know.
There's a few that I'm excited about.
I will parlay that into saying a huge thank you to Don Strasberg, who I've gotten to be very, very good friends with, my golfing buddy. We go to Red Rocks and all those venues. And he's the one who helped make this connection. So Don, and he loves listening to my pods, which is cool. So Don, thank you so much. But he might have teased out a gig that, anyway, all that being said, I will be there and I can't fucking wait.
Right on.
Nathaniel, this has been great.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And, I appreciate the support and listening. And
you earned it.
Thanks, man.
You've earned it. Love it. Thanks, man.
It ain't all right, the hardness of my head. Now close your eyes, spin around, say hard times you could find that ain't the way that you want. But it's still alright. Now late at night, you lay around wondering, counting all the lines. It ain't so funny now, say times are hard, you get this far, but it ain't the way that you want. I'll be damned if this old man don't start to counting his losses. But it's still alright. See and learn a lot out there, while the scorch and burn. Gonna have to bury your friends, and then you'll find it gets worse. You're standing out on a ledge with no way to get down. You start praying for wings to grow. Oh baby, just let go. It ain't alright, keep spinning out of your head. And it was cold outside, and I hit the ground, say I could sleep here, forget all the fear, baby, it would take time to grow. Maybe I don't know. Now, hey, tonight, if you think about it, remembering all the times you pointed out, say, glass is clear, but all this fear starts leaving a mark. Idle hands, all that stands from your time in the dark. But it's still alright. Is the future open? Is the future seen? You'd have to pray forever. And if you don't believe, they'll come down on you. From the longest fall. And have all been vanquished. And have all been tried. Like it's some great penalty, but it's just their pride. They got no follow through. To hold the weakest stance. Yeah, well, they come to steal and to veil. You say you thirst for vengeance, and you crave for fire on the roofs of innocence. You watch them rain and ride, and it don't bother you. You feel so brave. You're standing in the water. You think that you've been saved, but in your blind ignorance, and comes a crashing wave. I see what drowned men do. In your watery grave. Yeah, well, they come to steal and to veil. Yeah, well, they come to steal and to veil. Oh, that's good. Yeah, well, they come to steal and to veil. They come to steal and to veil.